Hello, Booktube, and this is episode 2 of Desert Island Books. And I have with me for episode 2 is Scott Danielson. Thank you for
Hello,
being.
everybody. Oh, thanks for having me. This is great. Yeah.
So yeah,
I
if you
saw.
want to start with introducing yourself and
Sure.
your channel
Yeah.
and so forth.
You bet. Yeah. So my name is Scott Danielson. I do have a Booktube channel that is seldom used of late, but I've been itching to get back on here. So this is terrific. Um, I do a podcast that's been running for we're in our 12th year right now. It's called A Good Story is Hard to Find. And on that, a Catholic friend of mine and myself, we bill it as, two Catholic friends talking about the movies and books we love. So we kind of talk about them from that perspective. And the last movie we do books and movies. The last movie we did was Jaws, and that was fun to talk about. And then the last book we did was called Monsignor Quixote by Graham Greene. And yeah, we've been plugging on there. So we've been doing that every 2 weeks for 11 plus years, amazingly enough. And that's usually an hour-long discussion in depth about this book or movie. And then, yeah, before that, I've been involved in science fiction and fantasy through a website called SFFaudio.com. And that's where my main internet presence has been anyway on science fiction and fantasy. I'm not there too often now. It's run by a good friend, Jesse Willis, but I spent a lot of time there. And SFFaudio, when the website started, was really about we would review audiobooks was the main idea, because audiobooks back then, we're talking like 2003, they're super expensive. Not that they aren't now, but back then it wouldn't be uncommon that it would be $90 or something for an unabridged audiobook of something or other. And so we started to review these books, and it was really a cool thing, because they used to publish, classic science fiction. It'd be like the first audio version of The Moon is a Harsh Mistress would come out, and then I'd get to listen to it and review it as if it was like a brand new book coming out. And gosh, and we loved it. Publishers were sending us audiobooks all the time. So really enjoyable. So yeah.
Yeah, I'll make sure all the links for those are down below in the description as well.
Thanks very much. Yeah, you bet. So,
So
how did I get on this island? Was it a horrific crash, or
I haven't figured that out yet. It may be something like Spirited there or something.
Yes. Okay. I'm looking at a photograph of.
You might have.
Maybe I'm reading the Far Side comic with the island with the one tree in it.
Yeah.
And then suddenly I was transported.
You fell asleep in a cave somewhere, and then you went to the island. I don't know.
Yeah, that could be it.
So do you have your 8 books there?
I do have them. Yes.
So yeah,
right here next to me. Yeah. All right. Well, the first one, it may be a little bit cliched, but this is the Bible. Got to have one of those with me. Really like to take one of these. So, yeah, I mean, even if you're not a Christian, I think the Bible is an amazing thing to read. At least portions of it, just to get all the references and all the other stuff we read, from the Western culture. So I find that when I read books and I'm looking for connections to other things and stuff, I found like the Bible is really rich with that kind of stuff, and so I do enjoy it as literature, as well as I am a Christian, so I do have beliefs there. So we'll bring the Bible with us.
And then, which translation is that?
This one, I'm Catholic. The one that I've been using recently is the Revised Standard Version, Second Catholic Edition. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, that's the one we generally use. The New American Bible, I think, is the one we use during Mass, the Mass readings and stuff. Right. So, okay. Then another one, which may be cliched, but I simply just couldn't not do this, is The Lord of the Rings by J.R. Tolkien. Here's my omnibus edition of all 3 books. This is a book that I just don't get tired of. I just read it, and it's been, every 2 or 3 years I'll give it a read, and I just love it. I don't know what else to say about it. People know so much about Lord of the Rings, but it's just, again, just a book that I just don't tire of, and I love this. This is a cool edition.
Yeah, that's a dust jacket, is it too?
Yeah, no, it's like a, I don't know. It feels almost like a suede kind of.
Oh yeah. I've seen. Usually I've seen them in a small little box.
Yeah,
like
I've seen those too. Yeah, along with a little version of The Hobbit and everything.
Yeah, I just finally got a copy of it. I've never read it yet, so
you haven't read The Lord of the Rings?
No, I've never read it.
So I certainly think you'd enjoy it. It's great. It just is.
Next year, definitely, if not before the end of this year. When was the first time? Yeah, definitely next year, if not before the end of the first year. When was the first time you came across it? Like,
The Lord of the Rings, I came across those in high school. So I was born in 1968. High school would be the 80s. So high school, it was floating around during high school all the time. Even in junior high, there were people that had it all the time. And at that time, the Sword of Shannara, I don't know if you've heard of those by Terry Brooks. That was brand new when I was in junior high and high school. And, I think back on that and I wonder how I knew things like we do now with the internet. Right. But I can't remember, how would I have read something that connected the Sword of Shannara to the Lord of the Rings? One of the criticisms of that first book was that it was pretty much an exact copy of Lord of the Rings, character for character practically. And but I don't remember now how would I have gotten that information, because I remember seeing that. I'm assuming it was in maybe a review in the magazine. I used to subscribe to Asimov's and Analog, Locus all the time. Maybe something I ran across in one of those, but it's funny to think about the world before the internet. And I just don't know how information got to me, but just generally, in school, other people reading stuff, Hitchhiker's Guide was floating around all the time. I remember Lord of the Rings was always around. Sword of Shannara was around, and then Elf Stones was the next one. Those kinds of books were around. Yeah. So, I had to think hard about the Silmarillion, which is a book that I love, but I didn't put it on my list, assuming, it had to be separate. So, yeah. Now, the next one that I have is a book that I love. I don't have it with me because I had lent it out, but it's called Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang, which is one of my favorite books. It's a short story collection. Story of Your Life is it's a novella that was the basis for the movie Arrival. It's one of those things that I read and I thought, boy, when I heard that it was being made into a movie, I just thought, how on earth are they going to even do that? How on earth are they going to do that? Because when I read it, it sort of renewed my enthusiasm for science fiction. I mean, it was that powerful a read when I first came across it, well before the movie. But I read it and I was just like, man, what you can do with science fiction, it like opened up again. It just, it had a profound impact. And then when this book came out, there's a lot of religious connotation in some of what he writes. I don't think he's a religious person. I just think religion is interesting to him. But the first story he ever published was called Tower of Babylon, which is about, it's kind of a surreal, almost a fantasy about trying to build almost a stairway to heaven, but it's like a giant structure where you go around in circles and circles and circles, and they keep building it and building it and building it and building it into, ludicrous heights, unattainable heights until they try to hit heaven. And it's a fascinating story. And I think that's the first one he ever published.
Wow.
And I remember one, Hell is the Absence of God, is another story in there. in which some of the Christian beliefs are shown to be actual and present, and what the world would be like, like there's angels and demons just kind of around. And that's a fascinating story too. But the gem of the thing is Story of Your Life, which is about a scientist who is called upon to try to communicate with aliens. And it is just fantastic. It's a mind bender of a story. Really good.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot about him because I've not read any of his work, and I do want to now. And because I've been hearing a lot over the last, I guess, year of other booktubers and like yourself that it sounds very fascinating in it, and I can believe when you say it sort of renews your interest in science fiction, because it sounds like it's got that kind of meaty aspect to it, that there's a little more depth and thought to it.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, for someone who has just grown increasingly disillusioned with modern science fiction, it's very clear that my interest is, I would say, I don't know, pre-2000, I guess. I grew up in the 80s. I love the 80s. I love the 90s. The science fiction was written in there, and then everything before it. But Ted Chiang is a writer that bucks that trend. When he writes something, and he's never written a novel, he writes only short fiction, and he's not prolific, meaning he just puts one out there every now and then, and is perfectly content to do that. And I think, though, as a result, his stories are almost always just top notch. He's got 2 volumes out. He's got that one, and then there's another one out called Exhalation in Other Stories, or I think it's just Exhalation: Stories. But it's also terrific.
That's good.
Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. I couldn't not bring at least one representative of pulp. And for me, I want to bring Burroughs's Martian Tales. I think that I've seen an omnibus edition that has 5 of these in it, so I would take those. But gosh, I love these covers. I just do. And in fact, early on when I was watching Booktube, I was watching yourself and Steve Donahue and Mark Richardson and many others, and this was right during COVID, I believe. It was Steve Donahue and Matt Wall and Mike from Pints and Paperbacks. I don't recall if you were involved or not back then, but they were doing a live show on the Martian Chronicles, and they ended up doing 2 of them. And when I watched those, I was like, I've got to jump in on this, because what's more awesome than that? But that was like the final straw, and then I was making videos shortly after that. But yeah, I really love these stories, and I did, the thought about having them with me on this island, it makes me really happy.
Yeah, I said to you previously, I'm sure I've seen a huge omnibus of all of them at some time, but I was trying to look for it, but I couldn't find it. And I wanted to join in on that readathon for that, but I just didn't have them. I didn't have them.
Okay.
At that time, I wasn't reading ebooks at all. No ebooks.
Yeah.
But now, that's how I'm going to probably have to do it, but I did find that the first 3 are still available and still in print, but the rest don't seem to be, at least here.
Oh, that's interesting.
I can buy the first 3, I noticed, and they have the same covers, I think. So, but they're still, I think, mass market. But I have to look into it, because they would be something I'd love to have in an actual book form, and I love those. Those are the ones that I read as well. I read back in the 80s.
This morning I poked around to see what I could see, and I found that they have 2 omnibus editions that looked easy to find, and the first one had 5 of them in it, and then the second one I think has the other 6. So there's a total of 11. but they're not very big books. I mean, that's
no, yeah. Lots. That's what I mean. You could easily put
Yeah.
them in one volume. What with it? They're just a little over 200 pages, I think, if I remember
yeah,
right.
if that on this first one. Yeah, this first one's 158.
Yeah. So yeah,
So
that's easy enough to do.
Yeah. But I remember back then they went through the first two, and then I think they just lost their steam and didn't continue. But I read the first two at that time, you know, just kind of keeping up with them. And man, they're fun. They're just fun.
They are, yeah.
Yeah, just fun. So then what I was thinking about was, okay, well, where can I get the most thought per inch?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I thought about this one here, The Art of the Personal Essay. And this is just, you know, it's something that, you know, I dip into. I mean, I do this now. You know, I'm not on an island now, but it's like, you know, I dip into, I haven't read every one of these, but I dip into it and I read them just now and then. I mean, George Orwell, Charles Lamb, Borges is in here, Gore Vidal. I know Annie Dillard is in here, Virginia Woolf. It's just Joan Didion, you know, so it's just, I feel like it would just be a source of things to think about on the island. You know what I mean? Just there's, I don't know how many essays in here, but it's got to be like 150 maybe. That might be too many. Maybe 100, something like that. They're not all numbered, so.
Yeah.
But you know, there's one here I just saw, Thoreau on walking. So. Yeah, I just felt like it would be a good thing to have.
Yeah, essays have always, for me, been something I've always loved, and I've got like bookcases full actually of various essays. Anytime I saw a cheap, you know, in the bargain section, oh, I haven't read that, or I've read some of that, I'm getting that, you know.
Right.
And, yeah, they're just amazing. It's not academic, not the academic ones, but just the fun ones. You know, but they do a lot of times are, as you say, thought provoking, and that's really good. You can sit and read something. I love Orwell, so I'm not sure what's in that of Orwell, but hopefully it's probably going to be Shooting an Elephant, or maybe Bookshop Memories. I would think.
Yeah, I don't think it's either one of those, and I've read both of those. Looking here. Such Were the Joys.
Oh, yeah. That's his talking about being in sort of public school, which is private school, and it's a bit ironic, the title as well for it. But yeah, that's a really good essay.
Absolutely, good stuff. And yeah, and on the same vein, you know, just thinking that I would like to be thinking about people and stuff at some point, you know, is this one, which I learned about on Donahue's channel. Sorry, there we go. It's called The Assassin's Cloak, an anthology of the world's greatest diarists. And so they're just diary entries. And the way that it works, it's split up into months, you know, so January through December, there's a section for each month. And you'll just get, you know, so this one just is 16 January. And then there's entries from various diarists, you know, some famous ones and some not so famous ones. You know, so on this page that I just opened, Lord Byron, Leo Tolstoy, Tony Benn, Captain Robert Falcon Scott. So it's just full of, you know, Malcolm Muggeridge, Neil Coward. It's just full of, again, just a whole, William L. Shirer. Awesome.
Wow.
So, you know, it's great. And you can see that I'm not very far into it myself. I've just been reading it, you know, just every now and then as something to fill in. I'll just read some, and it's endlessly fascinating. So I think this is a perfect book to have.
Yeah, it's well, another thing with the essays to me is diaries, but that's really neat because, as you can see, some of them are very short. So if all you had for time is 5 minutes and you want to read something, boom, there you go.
Yeah, right.
It's perfect.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated with diaries too. I really like, I don't know, things like Steinbeck wrote a couple. I think one of them is called Working Days, which he would whenever he would, I can't remember which novel. It was either East of Eden or The Grapes of Wrath. And he would warm up by writing a letter or a diary entry. Whenever he sat down to write, he'd sit there and he'd type just to get warmed up. And he would just talk about, well, this is my thoughts about whatever's going on in my life, or what's going on in the book, or this isn't working in the book, and I'm trying to work this out. And as he's typing, he just kind of works that out. I really like that. I know that Harlan Ellison has published a lot. I don't know. Those are really essays, though. I guess it's not really a diary, but I'm trying to think of like a science fiction analog. I don't know did Clifford Simak ever write any of that kind of stuff?
Well, not published, but he did keep sort of occasional journals for his writing and things like that, and sometimes just an accounting sort of I've written this, I've sent this off, I got paid so much for it, but he never was consistent with it.
Right.
And nothing's really the only thing that's been published, not that verbatim, but quotes a little bit in the complete fiction that was edited by Dave W. Wixon. So there's little bits in there, but that's it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I guess, letters are probably something that I'm more familiar with in science fiction, like, the letters of H.P. Lovecraft, or I have volume 1 and 2 of John W. Campbell's letters.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to read through that, because, once you've read a lot of these authors and you're just hearing John Campbell talking about, talking to these folks, either specifically about a story that you already know well or something like that. Recently I reread Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey, and it was interesting to read. He was talking about Anne McCaffrey to another person, because he was the one who published in Analog Magazine, the first Dragonflight by Anne McCaffrey was in that magazine. Yeah. And it was interesting to hear him, he was like, I have an author here who figured out how to make a dragon a science fiction thing, and he just loved it. So very good stuff.
Those are great. Just as an aside, those are great volumes, but they do need annotation. They do need some kind of thing, because he'll say something or he'll ask for something, and it's never followed up, and you don't know. Yeah. Like, did Carl Sagan actually do what he asked? Or an attempt to do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I want to know, but how do I find out? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, but I love that stuff. Reading that behind the scenes kind of stuff is always super interesting, and diaries and journals, fascinating. Yeah. Okay, so the next thing I have, I don't have a physical copy of, but it's called Carrying the Fire by Michael Collins. And now Michael Collins was the command module pilot for Apollo 11. So he was the guy who, if you remember right, Apollo 11, it would launch off the Earth and it would go in orbit around the moon. And then they separated the landing module from the command module. The command module had one person on it, Michael Collins, and the lander had Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong on it. So it lands on the moon. So this guy that's up in the command module is completely by himself. And he's orbiting the moon, waiting for the lunar module to reconnect, in a few days. And I just thought that's just an amazing thing to think about, is for the first time in human history, you have a person that was on the far side of the moon and could not see the Earth at all. The first human ever to not be able to see the Earth at some point. You know what I mean? I just think that that's remarkable, and it would take kind of a remarkable person to kind of be that first person. But I've read a lot of stuff about the space program. I've always been a buff. I've always enjoyed reading those books, and this book, Carrying the Fire by Michael Collins, is probably my favorite one. I mean, again, we're talking about diaries and stuff. He's writing very personal feelings, what it was like to do that, what it was like to be on the whole flight, what it was like to train to get ready. All of that stuff is in here, and it's very well written. So it's my favorite Apollo 11 book for sure. And it's one of my favorite just space program books, period. And
Yeah,
so I thought, on this desert island, looking at the moon, these are the kinds of thoughts that I have right now looking at the moon. Sometimes I look at the moon, and I think, gosh, we were up there, and, how amazing was that? And those are the thoughts that I have.
Yeah, I was, until you mentioned it, I've not been familiar with that book. I know who he was, but when you first said it before, I was thinking, okay, Michael Collins. There's Michael Collins, the IRA guy, or which one? But obviously, it's not the same guy. But yeah, I'm not familiar with that book, but it does sound fascinating. It does sound fascinating.
It's very well written, very, very good. I think it's the best of the astronaut written books that I've read. He's just really good writer. I don't know if he had help or not, but super good. Just all those details. It's amazing. Apollo 13 is amazing to read about too.
Yeah,
of course. Lovell, on that one, but things going wrong, and figuring out how to get home. That's an amazing story. But Apollo 11, first folks to walk on the moon. Awesome.
Do you know when that was written? Collins' book was written, or roughly? Or?
I don't have it, so I don't know the date.
I'll have to look that up. Yeah. Is he still alive? Do you know? Or
no, I don't believe so. No. I don't believe so. But actually, I'm not positive on that.
Yeah. These are all things that I can look up later, and everybody can look. But yeah,
for sure. Yeah,
internet's so easy.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, the space program is fascinating. It always has been.
Yeah,
it's very interesting times we're in right now. I mean, we're in like a very science fictional time. I mean, how many science fiction stories and books have you and I read in which a business person is creating starships?
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And here we are. I mean, over here in the United States, we've got Elon Musk. We've got Bezos is doing that. And isn't there another group? I think there's 3, but it's a very strange situation that we're in. I don't know. I call it a situation, but it's just a strange time that we're in. It's been incredible that, after the Apollo missions were all over with, then we move into the space shuttle, which is interesting, but not that useful.
Yeah.
Because it could only achieve low orbit. It wasn't going to do anything else. It was reusable, so that was kind of an interesting concept, but it was like a dead end. It was like there's nothing else that the space shuttle could have done. It wasn't like we were working towards something that the space shuttle would be useful to use, So we kind of reached a point where, we just stagnated in the United States anyway. And then the thing that kicks it off again is a businessman, He's like, I don't know that the NASA would have been given the funding to figure out how to land a rocket back on the Earth.
Yeah.
And it's funny to just read like the Martian Chronicles by Bradbury, where he's describing all these rockets coming into Mars and landing, and all those old science fiction films where the rocket just lands, vertically. And gosh, and that's what's happening now. It's just amazing. It's
obviously Elon Musk must have read this stuff. He must be familiar with this.
He must
do it. Like it sort of seems, well, you don't really need to do it. Landing it like an airplane seems so much easier.
Yeah.
But there is something cool about landing it, standing on its head, and having a rocket ship, in a sense, the shape of like the old rockets on pulp covers. There is something that's just romantic about that in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So interesting times. We'll see where it goes from here, but it feels like we're moving again, which is great. We're in 2022. I don't have a flying car. All this stuff that we thought, or I thought, at the time when I was in high school, the year 2000 seems so far away.
Yeah.
And looking back on that, that's kind of silly. I graduated high school in 1986. So what, in 14 years we were going to go from where we were to some kind of science fiction utopia, which is, I don't think I had unreasonable expectations, but I felt like we could have been a lot farther than we were. It was like suddenly all of that innovation and movement fell apart. But, just thinking about in the 20th century too, how far we came from 1900 to 2000 was an incredible difference. Whoever was born in 1900 wouldn't recognize 2000.
Yeah.
So we do have that, but it felt like that pace of technological change, maybe it kind of shifted online. It was more of a, cyberspace initiatives going on rather than any kind of a space flight initiative.
Yeah, and where where are the flying cars? Where is U.S. robots and mechanical men? Where's Susan Calvin? For all this kind of thing. But the last thing I wanted, a thought, I guess, with regards to the shuttle, I guess it did help build the International Space Station, which I think will be a building block into things later because they're learning a lot. It's probably its structure now probably won't last in the sense of being useful, because can you really use that as a jumping off point to anywhere else? Probably not, but I'm sure it'll be helpful to what they've learned when they do build something like that, which it is inevitable, but just hopefully Elon Musk doesn't get to Mars first and explode nuclear warheads at poles.
Yes, I saw him say that. Let's blow up nuclear warheads on the poles. And
just to warm it up.
Just warm it up. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, you're talking about science fiction. Yeah. Well, yeah. Just sorry, I keep going on this, but you've seen the video from Mars with the that's just awesome. Amazing. Awesome. It's like I find it hard to believe that it is actually Mars at times. It looks like Arizona or Utah places. It looks like Monument Valley in a sense.
Yeah. And robotics, you talk about robotics, but robotics, 3D printing, all this stuff is it's starting to mature, So I would imagine right now, if we were going to send people to Mars, it wouldn't be far-fetched now to send robots first.
Yeah.
And you land them and have them build a building. That's within the realm of possibility right now.
Yeah.
And they could build a building, fill it with air, you know what I mean? And when the astronauts land, they would have a place immediately to go. So, these are things being talked about right now, and technology that is not out of the realm of possibility right now. So, you can look on YouTube and you can show them a 3D printed house.
Yeah. We just need to live another 100 years old to see it, though. That's the thing.
For sure. You're probably right. Maybe, hopefully not that long, but maybe. But luckily, we'll be able to transfer our consciousnesses. No, never mind.
Yeah.
So if we now go the opposite direction. So this is my 8th one, and the 8th one was really hard to pick. I mean, I thought about things like Hyperion, which I think is a better book to bring to an island than Dune, for lots of reasons.
Yeah.
But I thought about bringing a giant book full of hard science fiction stories called the Hard SF Renaissance.
Yeah, that's
and
good.
I thought about Dante's Inferno, but then I thought, I don't know that I need to contemplate sin too much on my island. So, but I love Dante's Inferno and the medieval mindset and all that stuff. It would be endlessly fascinating to have. But what I ended up picking is a book that I'm actually reading right now, and it is June on the Range, and I'm loving it so very much. This is my second read of this book, Lonesome Dove, by Larry McMurtry. A giant Western, 950 pages. It's rare that I've read a book that has immersed me so much. There's just something about the way that McMurtry has written this book that I have this genuine feeling that I've been there throughout this whole thing. There's just something about his pace. He's not in a hurry. He's not afraid to take a tangent, and you don't mind as a reader. You know, sometimes as a reader, you're like, again, we're leaving the main story again, you know, but in this case, it's like, oh, interesting. Who's this person? You know, and it's very character driven. There's just so many interesting human moments in this book. And at the same time, it's a Western. It's a remarkable book. And it just occurred to me, it may be because I'm reading it right now, and I'm so close to it at the moment that rereading it is something that will definitely occur again. You know, just like Lord of the Rings, this is definitely going to be something I pick up now and then, even just to read pieces of it. There are some chapters in here that are just remarkable. You know, I read them and I'm just like, man, there's just something about this, you know, that just really hits home.
Yeah, I hear that from everybody that's you know, has read it, and I have not read it yet, and it is sort of on a list I do want to read eventually. And I guess if I really planned this out better, I should have got a copy for June on the Range.
Yeah,
because it just would have been a good excuse.
That's right. So I'm reading it with Summer from Quaker Cats and Scott Bryant from, you know, Scott and Becky Bryant, the Bookish Bryants. We're all enjoying it immensely, and I think Steve Donahue and Matt are reading it.
Mayberry Book Club.
Yeah, that's it. Mayberry Book Club. Thank you. It was slipping my mind for just an instant, but I've really been enjoying their videos as they move through it, and they're using the whole month to do it. So they're just talking about a quarter of it each week, and it's been really interesting to hear their thoughts as we move forward. And the Western is something that I guess is a rediscovery for me. Not too long ago, we were on a vacation. I read The Quick and the Dead by Louis L'Amour. Terrific book, you know. In fact, Scott Bryant, you know, I sent him some books, and he sent me a pile of Louis L'Amour's that he had that were spares, and I've been slowly working my way through those. And man, I just enjoy it. It's, you know, it's a genre I haven't paid much attention to, but I like it. And you've been reading some Cliff Simak westerns.
Yeah, his short stories. Approximately 14 of them, possibly 21, but they can't locate the others if they were actually ever published. In just the pulp magazines during sort of 44 to, well, as late as 52. And they're formulaic, but they're like, you know, occasionally I get, you know, glimpses of what I know of Clifford Simak, and they're fun. They're fun.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool. Have you done 310 to Yuma as a book to movie?
No, I do want to do that at some point. I do have. I don't know if I'd even mention the new film, but because I didn't care for that really too much.
Yeah, you definitely wanted you to do the original one.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I have so many that I want to do because I'm behind, because I wanted to do one every week for them, and I will do for this month, but one's going to probably go into July a little bit, and then I think I'll hold off on some westerns for a while. But I do want to bring them back, because even Quick and the Dead is potential. I remember reading that many years ago, and you know, I think a lot of Louis L'Amour books that have been turned into films. There's quite a
So 310 to Yuma, if I know that you know this, but if our listeners, is Elmore Leonard, and it's not a full novel. It's I would call it a novelette. It's very, very good.
Yeah, and I definitely will, because it's a really good film. The original film, anyway, it's really good, and I do have that. So all I need to get, and it would be easy enough, I'm sure, to get on. That's all. I might move that up to the top of the list.
That's cool. Yeah, I have a paperback called 310 to Yuma and Other Stories. It'd take me a minute to fish it out, but I've got that in paperback. It's nice. Elmore Leonard's amazing. I don't have any Elmer Leonard here. What the heck?
Well, that's the thing. It's these things, because all your picks are very interesting,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like, I was thinking, oh well, I would want to maybe put that on,
Mm-hmm.
but that means taking off something else. And
Yeah, for sure.
so, like you said before, can you just sort of tape together a whole set and make it,
Yes.
one
Yes.
book? And it's like, yeah, that's what you want to do. But there are no ebooks allowed in
That's
this,
what,
or e-readers.
Yeah, but if I had electrical tape, could I take 10 books and wrap it? Yeah, that's absolutely right. I hope you're going to do your Desert Island books for us.
There is, that's going to be done.
Good.
It'll be sort of mentioned next week how that's going to be done.
Excellent.
I won't be by myself, but
okay, good.
That'll be so. There's always a bit of suspense with this. I'm never saying who's next.
All right, wonderful.
Partially because I don't know. But also
I
too, I want to keep it, and it's like, I'm not going to list the books in the description, because you have to watch it. You have to watch it. You can't just skip it and go, oh, those are interesting. You have to watch it.
That's perfect. Perfect.
Yeah. So now, what is? So we've got your 8 books. What is your recording? I guess
recording. Okay, so I think I went to an unusual place here. So I mentioned that SFFaudio at the beginning. I am definitely an audiophile. I love audio. I love audio drama. So an audio drama is not an audiobook. It's like a movie. It's actors using a script to deliver an audio performance. It's not like a direct audiobook. And I do love music. I love classical music. I love pop. I mean, my musical tastes are eclectic, but I didn't pick a piece of music for my recording. I picked an audio drama. Something that is comfort food for me is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which a lot of people I don't think know was an audio drama first. Douglas Adams wrote that as an audio drama. It was in 2 6-episode fits. He called them Fit the First, all that stuff. It's called the primary phase and the secondary phase. And then he wrote the novels after that. So the novels are really novelizations of a radio drama. So that's what I would pick. I would pick that on the discs to bring. Is the I've seen the set of, I've had the set of the primary and secondary phase of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I would love all the phases. Maybe I could take that box set that you were mentioning, but because they've done the rest of the things that Douglas Adams wrote after Douglas Adams passed away, they circled back, and did radio dramas of the other books that he had written after that. So it's very interesting, so they audio drama first, primary and secondary, then he writes all these books, he passes away, and then they circle back and make radio dramas of the last 3, and they're all terrific. It's just great fun. It's really pleasant to listen to. It's funny. It's constantly funny. It never stops being funny. There's just something about that I just love.
Well, who doesn't like a paranoid robot,
Right. Yes. And I love the radio drama, we get the movie and we get the TV show.
Yeah.
But the way that they've done Marvin, it's like, Marvin, it's cool to imagine what Marvin would look like without those images being given to you, I don't recall Douglas Adams spending much time describing Marvin. All we know is that he's got the brain the size of a planet.
Yeah. Well, I think in the TV series they just went to sort of the wind up, 1950s style, square robot type.
Right.
And in the film, it just didn't work for me. Marvin just did not work for me. But there was a night in the scene, the original Marvin does a cameo.
Oh, nice.
Like they're buying tickets or something like that to something, and the original Marvin's in the queue, in the lineup.
I love it. That's good stuff. Yeah. So it's just something it's always on my phone or audio device. I have a Sony Walkman. I don't know if people know this, but they make it's like an iPod nowadays that, you know, I've always, you know, I loved the iPod Classic. I don't need my audio thing to be on the internet. I have the audio. I like to put it on there. And the Sony Walkman is what lets me do that today. There's nothing that Apple makes anymore that lets you do that. But at the same time, I always have this one on the phone. I'm always revisiting it. So, yeah, that's what I bring with me.
Well, talking about science fiction, those little things that are like this size,
yeah,
you can pack so many MP3s on it. It's like, and when the original Sony Walkmans came out, you know, just a little bigger than a cassette tape. That was miniaturization and technology.
Heck yeah.
Monkey
I remember, you know, like I said, we started that SFFaudio back in 2003. We were still in cassettes then. So you would get something like, let's say, Snow Crash by Neil Stevenson would come out, and they would send us cassettes. So it may be 10 cassettes long. So I was using Walkman at the time, you know, and that wasn't that long ago. We're talking 19 years ago, right? So things have just completely changed there. So, yeah. No flying cars, but we've got better audio.
Oh, yes. Now, for your luxury item.
My luxury item. I thought about this, and you know, the first thought is, you know, well, a communications device. But of course, it feels like that is against the spirit of this thing, right? So I'm trapped and I can't communicate with anybody. The thing that came to mind after thinking about it is how much I would like to have a telescope. Nice. I mean, I don't know what my budget would be for the luxury item, but something large would be awesome. Just to look at the sky with. I have a telescope right now. It's an 8-inch refractor, and I pull that out every now and then and look at the sky. I'm here in Utah. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. So we've got good sky in Utah. There are places in Utah. I was at vacation not too long ago at the Capitol Reef National Park, and the sky there, it was just breathtaking. You know, I'm used to seeing the stars. I'm not in a place where I can't see the stars all the time. So, you know, taking the telescope out and looking at planets is real easy. But if I want to look at deep sky stuff, I've got to get out somewhere away from the lights that I have. But planets are no problem. Planets and the bigger objects and stuff. But out there in the middle of nowhere, Utah, at the Capitol Reef National Park, you go outside and it's just breathtaking. And I think about, you know, in Lonesome Dove and stuff, you know, what they see when they look at the sky. And so me thinking about being on a desert island, I could just imagine looking up at the sky and seeing an amazing sky and wishing I had a telescope. So that's where I went.
Yeah, definitely no light pollution on a desert island. That's for sure.
No.
Yeah, I remember as a kid living way out in northern Ontario, and you could see, and I'm sure you could see it there because I've seen photographs of it. You could actually see the Milky Way at times.
Yes.
You know, that is, and I tell that to some people, and they don't believe me. Like they're saying, well, we're in the Milky Way, you can't see. No, you can see it. You know.
Yeah.
And I was also north enough occasionally to see the Northern Lights as well. So that was really. I don't think you'd see it in Utah. It's a little too south.
Yeah, it's a little too far north. And I grew up in Idaho, maybe, I don't know, a couple hundred miles north of where I'm at. And I remember one time growing up, the Northern Lights were visible. There was something special going on, but it was just for us very dim, very far away. You know, it's just like a glow is what we were seeing. So whatever was going on at the time, solar storm or whatever. But that's the only time. So even in Idaho, it's not something that we would see regularly.
Yeah. And that's probably, it could be the exact same time that I remember as well, that it was very clear in the night sky. And it wasn't that far north either. I was, but much more north than Idaho, that's for sure.
Yeah. Magnificent.
Yeah.
So how long am I going to be on the island? Is there going to be a time?
I haven't really, maybe read through everything a few times, you know.
Okay, you bet.
And then
I'll be able to make booktube videos.
you won't be able to post them though. You won't be able to upload them.
Okay. Sounds good.
So with your booktube channel, are there any plans that you're having?
Well, I've been thinking about a lot of stuff, but yeah, my plans right now are to get back on there. I need to get on there, get some regularity going on. But I've also thinking about stuff. I've talked to you about a couple of ideas. But yeah, just thinking about regular stuff. Like you were talking with Mark last week. Mark seems to have a little desire to do something regular as well, as far as some kind of a regular feature.
Yeah, he started actually today with something.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he's reading short stories.
Wonderful.
He's going to read
check that out.
Short story. So
no doubt. That's great. So one of the things that I was considering, that as you and I were talking, is doing some themed stuff like. If you talk about science fiction time travel, for example, what are the different kinds of stories, and doing a kind of collection, reaching back in my reading life and finding as many different examples of that as I could, and maybe bringing on some guests, to talk about that and just say, hey, these are the different types of that. And there's a lot of these little subgenres inside science fiction that are fascinating, that we've read so much of.
Yeah.
Science fiction goes through these, popularity little phases. So, but yeah, something like that, but nothing in concrete. I've just been thinking.
Yeah.
So.
No, yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, and I'm there for those as well, unless they're Lonesome Dove size. then maybe
fantastic.
not.
Yeah. My first love remains science fiction. Still love it. I actually don't read a lot of fantasy. I have Lord of the Rings here. I don't read a lot of epic fantasy, just some. But science fiction is my favorite. I love, like in a short story, I love a good idea in that story. That's really kind of a perfect size for that. And I like science fiction adventure. I like space opera.
Yeah.
These kind of things. Yeah. From the beginnings till, like I said, about 2000, 2010, maybe.
Yeah, you go quite a bit later than I do in general. But there are some later ones that I like. But yeah, for so long, like I guess it was sort of sometime in the 90s, I think, when I went to university, that I just sort of didn't really read much more science fiction. When I first came to England, I think about 2008 or so, I reread the Hyperion Cantos and Dune. And that was it. And I left everything until about 2 years ago. I started to get back into it, and I don't want to stop now. And a lot of it is rereads for me, and I'm just happy with that. But something like Ted Chiang does interest me for something new. So I do want to test some, because Steve Donahue keeps saying, "Don't I try anything else? There's got to be something out there new that I like." Or new in the sense post 1965. Let's put it that way.
You bet.
But I'm sure there is, and I'm willing to do that. But right now, I'm just indulging myself and just luxuriating in all the old stuff, and I think you can understand that. I think if you haven't had it for a while, it's like you haven't had a drink for a while of water. you really want it, and I'll qualify water.
Yeah. And there are definitely exceptions too. I used to vote for the Hugo Awards and stuff, and then I had a few years there where nothing was appealing. I would read like the short story slate, all the novelette nominees, and there would be like nothing. I would be like, what on earth has happened here? There's just nothing that's interesting. But there's always exceptions. An exception that leaps to mind is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. Won the Hugo Award, not the last one, but the one before that, I believe. And that's a really good book.
Oh, okay.
So every now and then, I'll pick one up still, but I'm not looking to stay current anymore, because I've just went through such a run of things that didn't interest me.
For me, it was like you mentioned Locus magazine, And I enjoyed that right from sort of, I think, late 70s through the 80s. Even though I wasn't reading that much new stuff, I was still reading, you know, authors that were the older ones like Frank Herbert, Asimov, and Simak at that time, and other ones. But I was reading this periodical, and occasionally, as you say, you do come up with something. Go, that sounds really interesting. And I remember seeing either it was a review or something about Dan Simmons' Hyperion. And I thought, I have to read this. And that was sometime in the early 90s. And that's probably one of the last sort of new things for new writers that I got. So when I say, you know, pre-1965, in general, yeah, because 65, I use that as, well, there's two ways to cut off there. It's the new wave after that. And it's the year before my birth date. So you know, anything after my birthday can't be that good.
That's right.
Like everything before.
That's right.
Films.
Yeah, wouldn't that be something? You know, the only thing you're allowed to read is from anything before your birthday. Yeah.
That works for me.
It would work for me too. I'd take it. That'd be all right.
Anyway, thanks very much, Scott, for joining me as Castaway and Booktube. We'll be back next week with a new Castaway. I'm not saying who it is yet. I do have it lined up, but I'm not saying who it is. You'll have to stay tuned. Thanks very much.
To it. Thanks, everybody.